Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into the spiritual teacher Ram Dass's really profound way of looking at life's biggest mystery. We're going to use his own words to help reframe death, not as some terrible ending, but as a truly transformational journey.
All right, let's get right into it. And you might think we're going to start with some heavy, complex philosophy, right? But nope. We're actually going to start with a story, a really personal one, all about a single red rose.
So, picture this. It's 1966. We're at the funeral of Ram Dass's mother. And this whole story, it's all tied up in this really simple but, as you'll see, incredibly powerful family tradition.
Yeah, so every single year on their anniversary, his parents would give each other one red rose. Just a simple thing, right? But for them, it became this huge symbol of their love. The whole family knew what it meant. It was this cherished little ritual.
Okay, so here's where it gets kinda wild. You have to understand, this wasn't a family of mystics. These were practical, down-to-earth people, lawyers. And as his mother's casket is being wheeled down the aisle, covered in these roses, every single one of them sees it. One rose just falls off, and it lands right at his father's feet.
No way. And in that moment, all that practicality just melts away. In the middle of all that grief, even the most rational person in that room looked at that rose and thought, okay, that's not a coincidence. His brother is the one who says it out loud, but they were all thinking it. It had to be a message.
So what happens next? Well, immediately the mission changes. It's like, okay, we have to save this rose. This isn't just a flower anymore. It's a message, right? A symbol of this love that lasts forever. So they're making calls, trying to figure out how to preserve it, seal it in glass, make it permanent. But you know how this goes. Despite all their effort, you just can't stop nature. Over the years, that beautiful symbol of eternal love, it starts to decay. The water turns this murky brown. The very thing they were trying to hold on to forever was literally falling apart in front of them. And this is the twist in the story. Ram Dass finds this decaying rose years later stuck in the back of a garage. And what does he do? He doesn't throw it out. He takes it and puts it on his holy table, a place of honor. And you have to ask why. Well, because for him, what that rose meant had totally, completely changed.
See, the rose wasn't about eternal, unchanging love anymore. It had become something else. It was a teacher. It was this perfect physical lesson in the transitory nature of things, this universal truth that everything, no matter how much you love it, is impermanent. Everything changes.
And this idea, this understanding that everything is temporary, well, it connects beautifully to how some ancient traditions, like the Tibetans, look at the process of dying.
In the Tibetan view, death isn't this one big, scary thing that just happens. No, it's a process. It's described as this predictable journey where the elements of the body dissolve one by one. First earth, so you feel heavy. Then water, you feel dry. Then fire leaves, and you feel cold. And finally air, when your out-breath gets longer than your in-breath. It's like a roadmap, And the point of knowing this map isn't to fight it. It's not, oh my gosh, I feel cold, quick, get me a heater. The whole point is to let go, to recognize the signs, and instead of getting lost in the details, to free your awareness. To see it not as a medical emergency, but as this incredible adventure of transformation. And wow, what a reframe that is, right? It really challenges one of the biggest, most fundamental ideas in our modern Western culture, our whole relationship with death. This chart really lays it out perfectly. The common view? Death is the enemy. It's a mistake, a failure we have to fight, a tragic loss. But the spiritual view flips that entirely. It's not an enemy, it's an adventure. It's not a failure, it's a natural transformation. It's not a loss, it's a graduation. Okay, so if death is graduation, that's a huge idea. But what does that make this, our life, right here, right now? Well, Ram Dass has this fantastic analogy for it. He says life on this plane is basically like being in the 4th grade. Think about it. You're here to do specific work, to learn certain things. And all the stuff you struggle with, your unique suffering, your challenges, that's not a sign you're doing it wrong. That is your curriculum. That's your assignment. And the rules of 4th grade, they're pretty simple. You're in the right classroom. All your problems, your neuroses, yep, that's your homework. That feeling of if only things were different, that's part of the lesson too. Nobody made a mistake putting you here. And death, that's just graduating. That's so freeing, isn't it? It means right now you are exactly where you're supposed to be.
And this just completely changes how we think about a life that ends, too soon. If you're just graduating from fourth grade, well, if you graduate early, big deal. Wonderful, even. It's not a tragedy. It's just finishing your curriculum.
Which brings us to one last metaphor. And it's a really beautiful one. It kind of ties this whole idea of acceptance and release together. He says, dying isn't a failure. It's not an error. It's like taking off a tight shoe that you've worn well. Just imagine that feeling, that relief. That's what he's talking about. Not a tragedy, just this welcome release. There's a saying, those that find the way in the morning can gladly die in the evening. And that's really the heart of it. Making peace with death isn't about being morbid or giving up on life. It's the exact opposite. It's about living so fully right now that when the time comes, you can approach it with openness, not fear. So I'll leave you with this question. What if death isn't a failure, but a graduation? If we can start to see it that way, maybe we can start clinging to life just because we're scared of the end. Maybe we can actually start to live it with way more richness, more energy, and more love. And that's the real adventure, isn't it?